Okay, good morning. This is the November 12th meeting of the Kingston Recycling Committee. Committee members present in the room are
David O'Connell, Gene Wyatt.
Jean Landis-Nauman. Vanessa is going to try and join us. She is in a waiting room at a hospital in Boston. So online, we have our Mac podcast, and we have our guest speaker, Marissa Perez.
Dormitzer.
Say the last name for me.
Dormitzer.
Dormitzer. Okay. All right. This meeting is being recorded by the local scene, formerly PAC TV. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Not seeing anyone. All right. Our first order of business is we have an appointment with Marissa. She is with the Greater New Bedford Regional Refuse Management District. And she's here to talk to us about their food waste drop-off program. I had spoken with her after I ran across their website. And while they have a slightly different setup than we do, because we're trying to increase trying to increase the number of people engaged in our program, I thought it would be worth our time to hear a little bit from Marissa about how their program operates and if there's anything there that we could benefit from. Let me just shut this. So Marissa,
Yes.
I'll let you introduce yourself and proceed with, she even put together a presentation for us, and then we'll have time for Q&A. All right.
Great. And can you see the slide with the picture of the landfill?
Yes.
Great. Excellent. So thank you so much for the introduction, Jean. My name is Marissa, and I'm with the Greater New Bedford Regional Refuse Management District. We serve the city of New Bedford and the town of Dartmouth with a combined population of around 134,000. This is a picture of the Crapo Hill landfill that the district operates. I think it's a great photo because you can see the area toward the front, which is all green, and that's filled with trash already. And so then the area in the back is where we're currently putting the trash. So since we run a landfill, we are very interested in extending the life of the landfill. And so we're always looking into new programs that we can implement. And food waste inevitably is one to focus on, with it being 20% of what goes in the landfill. And so we've talked a lot about how to address food waste. At this time, a municipally funded curbside program isn't likely in either community, so in New Bedford or Dartmouth. So we've been working on coming up with a menu of options, and I'm going to mention this briefly. I know we want to talk, focus in on the food waste drop-off, but I just thought I'd give an overview of what we're doing so far. So we are offering residents food waste prevention tips. If we just cut down on the food waste, then there's less to handle. So we're encouraging people to eat their leftovers and make smaller portions and freeze their food and all kinds of tips like that. We strongly encourage backyard composting. We've increased the number of compost bins that we sell to residents in New Bedford and Dartmouth a lot. We went from selling maybe 10 to 15 in a year, and now we sell more like 100. I think we got up to 238 one year. So we've really been focusing on that because it's a great program for those that can do it. There's no truck needed, no program. You just need the compost bin and information to get started. And then we have the food waste drop-off programs in New Bedford and Dartmouth, and I'm going to talk in more detail about that. And then just before Halloween, we launched a program in Dartmouth, which is a curbside food scrap collection program. And that's one of these programs where residents can pay Black Earth directly to have their food waste picked up in front of their home. So we're hoping that with all this, we can make a dent in the food waste that is going in the landfill. But we're continuing. We're always thinking of, well, what comes next? We're currently testing these food waste machines in our homes. You might have seen the Lomi, the food cycler. We're trying to see if maybe that's something we should offer residents. So we're always thinking about what can we add to our menu of options. So focusing in on the drop-off programs. This is the drop-off site in Dartmouth. The program started in June 2024. You can see it's really simple. I know some other communities have sheds or overhangs or different things, but there are just 3 carts. When the program started in June, there were 2 carts. So it's expanded, which is exciting. There was a need for another cart. You can see there's a metal sign there that the town provided, and then the A-frame sign we make inserts on the A-frames, and they can be with different messages. And so this one provides a little bit more detail about what can be placed in these carts. I do want to mention that in Dartmouth, they have a pay-as-you-throw program. So I feel like that's one factor in that this program has been so successful that it's been growing. In October, we've actually had the highest weight yet, monthly weight. So it's still growing, which I think is great. But there's this intrinsic motivation for residents to get things out of those pay-as-you-throw bags and find other options for their waste. The vendor for the program is Black Earth Compost, and it's picked up weekly. And the town pays for this service with RDP funds. You can see this is what it looks like. I know that in Kingston, there's a food waste drop-off program, so I'm sure you're very familiar. Residents drop off the food waste either loose or in the BPI certified compostable bags. And then here are our weights. So I'm always excited each month when they send us weights. You can see we started in July with around 2,000 pounds. And then in October, we had our highest weight at 2,880 pounds, 2,880. And so over the 4 months so far, we've collected about 10,000 pounds of food waste. So that's about 5 tons that's diverted from the landfill. So we're really pleased with how this program has been going so far. And then New Bedford also has a food waste drop-off program. And so this shows what it looks like. Similarly, there are 3 carts, no fancy structures, just 3 carts available with some signage. You can see there's decals on the carts, and then the lid says food waste only. They also have a metal sign that the city made, and then the A-frame sign. I couldn't get it all in one photo because this is actually on a corner, so I couldn't get a nice photo like the Dartmouth one. But this program started in June 2022, so it's been going on longer than Dartmouth's program. The vendor is Recycle Works. It's these carts, so 3 carts like Dartmouth, but these are collected every other week. So if you might recall the motivation of the pay-as-you-throw program, which New Bedford does not have. This program similarly is paid out of RDP funds. And unfortunately, I don't have weights for the program. New Bedford's scale at their transfer station isn't working. So we don't get actual weights. There was a time where we tried to estimate the weights, where we would go there each week on the day before pickup and note how full the containers were. Because in order to come up with an estimate, you need to know, okay, are they half full? Are they completely full? And I know it's been said that these carts are estimated to be about 200 pounds when they're full, but we don't have actual weights for this program. So we've done a lot to encourage participation, including offering free gift cards to entice people to use the program. So first, I'll talk about these starter kits. I know similarly, Kingston offers, I believe, a bucket. And so I want to point out that we didn't come up with this idea. We implemented this program after gathering information from many other communities. So I believe Wellesley might have used a bucket. I believe Charlie and Sherborne gave me the idea of these Home Depot buckets. So I think it's a great that we have this community where we all learn from each other. So in general, we've ordered 4 rounds of these starter kits. We purchased 1 round of starter kits, this full starter kit as pictured in New Bedford when we started the program. After that, we we're giving out just the kitchen bin and the roll of compostable bags, and that's what they're still giving out in New Bedford. Then in Dartmouth, we gave out 100 of these starter kits, the full kit, and then they went through them. And so remember, they started in June 2024. So just a few months ago, they already gave out 100 starter kits. And so we bought 100 more that they're giving out at this time. And so these starter kits were funded with a combination of sources. I know Jean had asked me, well, how do we pay for these things? So the district receives a small scale initiative grant from DEP each year. That's like a separate grant. I know that Claire from South Shore Recycling Cooperative is also eligible for the grant as a standalone organization. And so we've used that. And then the last round of starter kits for Dartmouth was funded by district, by our own funds. We feel like the starter kits really help people to participate in the programs, because for a lot of people, it's a little bit of a foreign concept. So by giving them these tools, it can help them to learn how to separate the food waste in their kitchen and figure out their own system. So let me see. So the starter kits are giving out in Dartmouth at the DPW office, and then in New Bedford at the similar department. It's called the Department of Facilities and Fleet Management. So then I can go over some of these details. I know that Jean had asked me, what are the specifics? So first we have the bucket. So we chose to purchase buckets from Home Depot. They offered a really good deal. So those are $3.76 each. And the prices that I'm giving you are from our last order. So we purchased these maybe 2 months ago. So it's very recent. The bucket lid, like Kingston, I know you like the resealable lid, which we're big fans of. We think it's really helpful to residents. So they're not cheap. So we paid $7.36 for each of those lids. And we mallet them on, which is an experience. We borrow mallets from where we work and we mallet them onto the buckets, which is a challenge. We then have a bucket decal. Let me see if I can zoom in. So you can kind of see there's a decal on the bucket that we make. You can see little pictures of food waste. We just felt like we needed to put something on these buckets or else they would disappear and be used for other purposes. So at least it's clear what's expected, the expected use of the bucket. So the decal we purchased from an online vendor called Sticker Mule, and they're $1.26 each. And then we have our kitchen bin on the right. And so these we purchased off of the Massachusetts state contract. In our last order, we paid $5.45 for each of these. And I'm happy to give you a copy of these slides so you don't have to note down all of the information to make it easier. And then we have a decal. Let's see if I can zoom in again. So we have different decals that we put on the kitchen bins. We also give out these kitchen bins for people who are purchasing backyard compost bins on a certain day. And so obviously that decal is going to be different than this one for the food waste drop off. You can see perhaps there's meat, there's bones, looks like a salami sandwich or something. And so some of those things wouldn't go in our backyard composting. So we have the decal and we paid $1.31 for each decal. And then moving down, we purchased compostable bags. So I've been buying these since 2022 for a few years. So I've been following pricing and trying to find the best pricing. I originally purchased eco-safe bags based on a recommendation from Cambridge. They had preferred eco-safe bags, but they've been getting too expensive, a lot more expensive than they used to be. And so I found a lot better pricing with BioBag. And so we make rolls of 10 compostable bags. Each roll costs 96 cents each. And that goes in the kitchen bin. We also put a flyer in the kitchen bin as well. And the total cost for each starter kit is around $20. So that would be the bucket, the kitchen bin, the roll of compostable bags. So these, like I said, these are being given out right now in Dartmouth. And then the modified version with just the kitchen bin and the roll of compostable bags is being given out in New Bedford to residents who want to participate. So I believe I have 1 or 2 more slides. So besides the starter kits, which is our big effort to encourage participation, we've also done some other things. We've done some kind of like usual outreach that we do when we're implementing programs, such as sending out a press release, distributing flyers around the city. We post on social media. We have 2 pages, New Bedford Recycling and Dartmouth Recycling on Facebook. We also are on Instagram, X, and Nextdoor. And then we've done outreach at community events such as farmers markets. And we put flyers. I had forgotten about this, but I'm preparing for the presentation. We made a flyer that went in 26,000 water bills in New Bedford in March 2023. And one side of the flyer was all about this food waste drop-off program. So then on the slides, it features some of the maybe more unique things that we've done. We had a program where we gave out gift cards to entice people to drop off food waste in New Bedford. So this slide is all about New Bedford. So for 10 weeks, we went to the city's recycling center on a random day and a random hour. And the first person that we found dropping off food waste received a $50 gift card. These were paid for from the district. We have some public education funds, and then Stop and Shop also contributed 2 of these gift cards. So the district paid $400, and then Stop and Shop contributed $100. So this program was really fun. Just a few weeks ago, I was at the recycling center, and the attendant said, "Oh, are you still doing that gift card giveaway? Residents keep asking about it." So that was exciting that it left a lasting impression. But then on the right, another thing that we did, we were thinking, well, how can we engage people who live near the recycling center? Because knowing that people may not drive a far distance to drop off their food waste. And so we came up with a cart tag. Let me zoom in. So it's just like, I know Todd knows the IQ kit, where some communities were tagging recycling carts about contamination. And so this is the same tag from that same vendor, but we modified the messaging to be focused on food waste. And this tag went on the food waste carts. So food waste doesn't have to go in your trash cart, and then some information about how much food waste is in the trash. So drop it off at the recycling center, and we have nice pictures of what you can drop off, the information when it's open. Let's see, go on this one. Participating is easy, with some tips for how to participate. Again, this isn't necessarily intuitive to residents. Residents are used to recycling. You mentioned recycling and they're like, oh, I have a bin upstairs, I got a bin downstairs. But food waste, I feel like it just doesn't necessarily come naturally to residents who don't participate in these programs now. So we have some instructions, and then you can see the free kitchen counter bins and compostable bags that are available, where to pick them up. So we put these tags on trash carts in the neighborhoods surrounding the recycling center. So with the idea that those people are more likely to drop off food waste. But I will say that in New Bedford, they're still having those carts picked up every other week. So they haven't filled up. So again, the difference of the pay-as-you-throw program, I think, and not having a pay-as-you-throw program. I can mention, though, in New Bedford, there is a limit. So for example, a single family receives a 65-gallon cart for trash, and that's it. There are no overflow bags in New Bedford. So there is some motivation to reduce waste, because if there's any trash set out on top of those carts, next to those carts, the resident is most likely to receive either a warning or a fine. The city has multiple inspectors who are going around on collection day looking for violations. Let's see. Oh, and the tags, so the district paid for those tags. We paid about $1,000 for 1,000 tags, and then our existing staff applied them to the carts. And then I think this is the last slide. So in Dartmouth, that's a little bit more recent. So we did our usual outreach. We did a press release, flyers distributed around town, post on social media. We got a flyer in the students, so for the public schools, in the students' electronic backpack. So as a mom, I know I get emails all the time from the schools with all sorts of information. So it's similar in Dartmouth that there's an email sent out to the parents, and so they included this information in one of those emails. It's also on the school's website as well. We were able to put a flyer about this program in the annual invoice that the town sends for they call it a smart program, like pay as you throw. So they do an annual invoice, I think it's $90 a year to participate in the town's program. And along with that invoice, I get an opportunity to put a flyer. And so usually on one side is their collection calendar, and then on the other side, for 1 year, we focused on, well, actually just recently in July 2024, it was all about this food waste drop-off program. And then recently, my coworker went to the fall town meeting and gave out information there and showed off the starter kit. So that was a great opportunity. But on the slide, we have spent a lot of time at the Dartmouth transfer station talking to people. We figure they're already going there, so it's a great opportunity to engage with residents. So on the left, that is Kendall. She helped us this summer focus our efforts on food waste. And so she was at the transfer station. You can see she's holding a flyer. You might not be able to see she's holding a roll of compostable bags. And then on the right is my coworker, Janet. There are actually 3 of us. So there's Meg, you might have met at meetings. She works full-time. I'm full-time. Janet works with us part-time. And she can see she was very enthusiastically holding up our rolls of compostable bags. So for the last 4 weeks, we have been doing a giveaway of compostable bags. To back up a moment, the town chose to not continue giving out compostable bags. They didn't want to be the supplier of the compostable bags, but since we've had some grant funds since with Kendall's position, she was grant funded through ReFed. We had some extra funds, so we've been buying compostable bags. So we did this giveaway where once a week, we randomly picked a day and a time to go to the transfer station and hand out compostable bags to anyone who's there. We announced it ahead of time. I felt the best thing that I got out of it was just engaging with residents. There weren't that many who came to the transfer station saying, "Hey, I heard I could get a free roll of compostable bags." But I spoke with a lot of residents with, engaging them. Have you heard about this new food waste drop-off program? So it was a really great opportunity to speak with residents about the program and then also about the other options for food waste. I learned a lot of the Dartmouth residents already compost at home, which was great to hear. So I think that is my last slide. Yep, that is it. So I can stop sharing. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to help.
Okay. Gentlemen. Any questions?
I had one, but I forgot.
It'll come to you later, David. So a lot of the funding has been different grants, is that correct, as well as RDP?
Yes, so the small scale grant, the RDP grant, and then I have a public education line item through the district that I'm able to use to fund some of these efforts as well.
Okay, now that the funding for that line comes from the towns?
So we're a landfill. So in addition to New Bedford and Dartmouth's trash, we take commercial trash. And so the commercial trash helps pay for many of these efforts, pays for the staff. It helps offset the cost for the 2 communities. So it doesn't directly come from the town. I would say more so it comes from the commercial trash that we take in to the landfill.
Okay, all right. So neither town has a line item in their town budget for any funding for this program.
So no, I mean, the collection is funded through RDP. The city has a staff person who's dedicated to enforcement and recycling education, but not directly to this program. So good point. I think you're correct there.
Okay. All right.
How many do you buy at a time, the compostable bags?
Yeah, so I buy a case of 500. So for me, that's 50 rolls, and that's through Bio Bag. I don't think I have that note in front of me. I know it was on a slide. They were so a case is 47.85 for 500 bags.
And
Is it-
they're packaged as 10 at a time, or you have to repackage?
We repackage them. So Janet helps with that. We repackage them, and we've thought hard about how many bags to give to residents because I don't want to waste any bags. So if I'm giving them away, I don't always know that they're going to be used. So that's how we came up with 10. In New Bedford, they've actually started making larger rolls for their what you call their regulars, people they know who are participating in the food waste drop-off program. So they're giving out more like 15 or 20 per roll. Whereas when I'm just doing general outreach, I give out 10, again, because there's no guarantee that these bags are actually going to be used.
Okay,
What's the volume? Sorry.
that's right. Good.
What's the volume? Is it for the kitchen ones or for the 5-gallon buckets?
Good. So it's, I think, 2.5 gallons. So it's designed for the kitchen bin. So the idea is you line the kitchen bin, fill it up, tie it off, and then you put it in the bucket with the beautiful resealable lid that keeps everything inside. And then when that's full, or maybe you don't want to wait till it's completely full, but a decent weight in there that you can carry, then you would bring it to the transfer station or the recycling center in New Bedford.
Okay.
Do they have any volume discount? Like if you bought a certain amount, would they sell them cheaper? Like if, so say we chipped in and bought a pallet of them and split them up or something, would the price go down significantly?
So the kitchen bins, I purchased those off the state contract. And so just like I purchase compost bins, there's pricing for different numbers of items. And Todd may be more familiar than I am. So if I purchase a certain number, the price goes down. So I aim to get the best price. Like I'm buying 100 earth machine composters at a time because I get a better price, and we're selling so many. I know we're going to sell them eventually, but if I buy less than 100, then I'm going to be paying more, I think like $5 more per backyard composter. So that's usually my thinking. If we're going to use these eventually, I will buy more to get the better price. So correct, the price goes down the more you buy. Yes.
Mhm. Now, do you have a storage area of your own? Because we have no facility that's just for the recycling committee. Up to now, our superintendent of streets, trees, and parks, who oversees the transfer station, has allowed us to leave some items in his limited storage at the highway barn. So we don't have a designated area for our materials. But apparently you do, or how do you, your items, where are they kept?
Sure. It's a great question. So there's a stack of buckets in front of me and a box of shore clothes in front of me in my office. That isn't where everything is kept, but we do have the items actually delivered to my office. I'm in New Bedford's wastewater treatment plant. So fortunately, they do have some equipment to help us when we get big deliveries like this, like a pallet of buckets or whatever it is. We have them delivered here because we assemble them here. So the mallets I mentioned, we're smacking those lids on there. We borrow the mallets from the wastewater treatment plant staff. So we have them delivered here. I'm often in a rush to get them out of here, we have a small office, and we then, like for Dartmouth, we then bring them to the DPW. We can fit 40 in our truck at a time. So we've so far, fortunately, delivered one set of 40. We just delivered the second set of 40. So what remains is the 20. So there isn't much in my office. But we do have access to other locations as well. We're a landfill, so we have some old barns. We actually own some properties. So some things we store in a garage on a property that the district owns. So we do have access to more storage, but these starter kits were all in my office. So that all happened just in my office, delivered to my office, stacked up all around me in my office until we got them put together and distributed to the either community.
Okay, so you have an office. It sounds like you also have a truck.
Yes, we do. We have a pickup truck with a cap on, so we can keep things in there.
Okay, so going back to the organization, how did that come about? Was that a town meeting vote to establish this? Your organization? I mean, how did it come about that you have this separate organization overseeing these activities in both communities?
Sure, it's a great question. I wasn't around when it started, so my understanding is that there was a special act of the Massachusetts legislature that formed the organization. I know there are a lot of people who were pushing to have it created, with the main impetus being the landfill, citing the landfill. So that was how we started. And then I've been in my job for 25 years now, but 25 years ago, I was hired as the first person in the district working only on these types of efforts: recycling, waste reduction, clothing, food waste, all these different programs. So we first started with the focus on the landfill. And that's why the district was formed and organized. In the beginning, it actually included other communities. I always think that's interesting. I believe Fairhaven and Acushnet were going to be part of the district, but then they made other arrangements for their trash disposal. But here we are. We now serve New Bedford and Dartmouth. We do also take trash from Freetown as well as Lakeville. So we serve nearby communities, but they're not our member communities. Our member communities are New Bedford and Dartmouth. We also just very recently in October started taking Fall River's trash as well.
Okay. All right, but that's the landfill that you have.
It is, but the district started with the landfill. That was the whole reason the district began. That was the focus. But now that we're on all these years later, we're focusing on trying to extend the life of the landfill. As we all know, there are limited outlets for trash. I actually have a presentation this evening, and so I believe it's that 43% of trash in Massachusetts is exported to other states. Does that sound right? Yes, Todd?
Pretty close to that, yeah.
Pretty close?
I think it's a little bit lower, but yeah, it's right around there.
Yeah. So because of that, our landfill is a huge resource. Unfortunately, when things are going great, no one's really is that interested and motivated to learn about this. So I like to try to share this story as much as possible and share how people can reduce their waste and implement new programs. But obviously, once the landfill is a lot closer to filling up, that's when there'll be a lot more talk and conversation about this. Right. I guess it's like you have to wait till there's a crisis for things to happen. But we're so fortunate. I mean, I think maybe there are 2 publicly owned landfills in Massachusetts. I think Bourne and us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Middleborough.
okay.
Middleborough
Okay,
has one,
Middleborough.
but it's run by Waste. Yeah.
Excellent. But if we can keep our landfill open for as long as possible, it benefits everyone in New Bedford and Dartmouth.
Sure.
Do you take trash in C&D or just trash?
Just trash.
Okay. Well, how long has Dartmouth had a pay-as-you-throw program, and who was behind getting that going?
Sure. I believe it was 2007, 2009. So it's been a long time.
Okay.
I remember being at the meeting where they voted it in. It was really interesting. It was a time of a budget crisis, and the meeting was packed, but it was packed because there was an issue related to funding of the schools. So no one was there to hear a vote on pay as you throw, this big vote that would change how collection is done in the town. But it was because there was a budget crisis at that time. And so they needed to do something. They couldn't keep going on paying for trash disposal, trash collection through the tax base. And so that was the impetus for changing it.
We might have that opportunity.
Yep.
We are looking at an override come this spring primarily because of the school funding. We had not anticipated trying to do a pay-as-you-throw program again. We tried it a few years ago. It got shut down. We had, I think I told you, we had a very small group of rebel rousers who just didn't, government interference in their life, didn't want any pay-as-you-throw. So we came away from that very wounded and felt that the time was probably not right yet to reintroduce it. But in light of what you're talking about, where there's a budget crisis, it just might work. You never know. We had talked about doing it through our Board of Health, even though they don't oversee the transfer station at all. They have a very minimal involvement with trash haulers, but I'm not sure that would go anywhere either. So yeah, that gives us food for thought, Marissa. Thank you. We may want to rethink our timeline on proposing pay-as-you-throw.
So,
And Todd, you've offered to help us a bit with that, right?
absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to be talking about that for Abington in a half hour from now. So
Okay.
again,
Okay.
a couple things I wanted to mention here real quick. Marissa, great presentation. I really like that. The food waste prevention tips, I think, is fantastic. I love that idea. And I think, Jean, it's something that we should dive into that a little more.
Mhm.
I really like that a lot. The push the backyard composters and education component, I think, is great. Marissa hit that nail right on the top of the head perfectly. If you have that, you have to have the education component to it. I think that's
Mhm.
and that's why they're selling so many of those things. I think,
Right.
I mean, you went from buying 100 to needing 250. I mean, that's a heck of an increase. So really
Right.
impressive.
And they're free, right? They're free to the residents?
The compost bins?
No,
No.
You charge-
no, the package for the food waste. That's all funded. So the public doesn't pay anything for that.
Correct.
Yeah,
You
the other
get
thing
copies of your stickers, like a template, so if we were gonna print them out, we'd have a template for the kitchen scraps and the larger compost buckets. Okay, thank you.
the other
That
couple
saves
things
a lot of work.
Yeah.
The other,
Todd?
the other few things I think that we should really discuss further with Kingston is the gift cards. I really like that idea a lot. I think that's really cool just to kind of surprise people because that'll get the town talking. Maybe
The
it's not
what?
50, the gift cards that they were giving out.
Our
just-
gift cards?
Yeah. Just pop in there. And if someone does, I really like that idea a lot, but we need to tie it to some sort of a component. I think, more than just a thank you, here's a gift card, have a nice day. It needs to be, I don't know, kind of make it a little bit challenging or something. But I really like that idea. Tying that to social media posts, I think would be cool. The flyers for water bills. I think we tried that before in Kingston, right?
We did,
something.
yeah.
I'm not sure how well that went over, but and then the other thing I really liked, if you guys were curbside, I love the modified IQ kit tags. I really like that idea a lot. I think that's fantastic. So, and the other big thing, which I actually put a star next to, was the school email. I think that's fascinating because we have never thought about incorporating the schools into. I mean, we're working on that, but actually send an email out about the composting program at the recycling center through the school email. I think that's really might be an untapped market. I think we should explore that as well. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And then getting
I really don't know. I'm sorry, I have to take this. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Anyway, I really like those ideas and thoughts. I mean, I'm probably going to propose those in some other places too, if you don't mind, Marissa, because I think it's new and fresh. I love the ideas. I really do. You guys have really done a wonderful job there in your area, and I'd like to try and replicate it. So
One thing I work with the schools a lot, and it's an uphill battle to get them to put things on there. But I'm not saying it can't be done, it depends on the reception it gets.
Yeah.
And, I have one other thing,
just takes time and discussions, conversations, and I think at some point, but it's something I don't think I think we should work on it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've not had any luck with the schools at all. They were very reluctant to But that was pre-electronic.
Yep.
They didn't want to have any paper to hand out to students, so we could try again. I know a couple school board members, see if they could help us figure out if this is feasible. We do use the Recreation Commission email list. They're very helpful in distributing information when we do something. And as you know, we did recently hire Jess Wozniak to do weekly PR for us. We've been keeping it fairly generic and seasonal related. I just worked with her over the weekend on what we're going to message in December because of the, all the material that's generated around the holidays. So it could be that in January we hit hard on the food waste.
I've worked with Stop and Shop with schools, and they were very generous. So I think I like your idea. Who doesn't want food, right? Stop and Shop, so you can get like a $50 or $25 gift card. That would really get people's attention.
Especially with food prices being so high. It's a nice little break.
Well, they aren't that high, honestly. I think much has been overstated about that.
Yeah, I mean, my grocery bill is definitely higher than it was a few years ago.
Well, it would be. I mean, the
But
cost of everything has gone up, including the cost
still,
to the farmers,
people got used to the extra money, I guess. But I mean, the pandemic really did create a lot of this. So
It did. It put us behind far more than I think anybody realizes. And people were trying to make up the loss that they experienced during the pandemic across the board. So, and the weather has not been very kind to a lot of our agricultural enterprises. So we can expect to be paying more if we want to have fresh food as well as canned. It all comes out of the same ground. And if the crops are devastated, the prices has to go up, So it's a combination of factors, but I agree, we're here to figure out how to get people to produce less waste and then to properly dispose of it. What kind of messaging did you do to decrease the amount that they were purchasing or the way they were purchasing?
Good question. So we have a flyer. So Kendall, the woman in the picture, again, helped us this summer through a grant. She was a Climate Corps fellow. And so she helped us come up with messaging. So we have a tagline of save food, save money. We have the fact the average American family of 4 spends $1,500 annually on eating food. Based on research, we've actually found that leftovers are a big thing, and that if we could get people to eat their leftovers, it would really have an impact. So that's one of our first tips: eat your leftovers or make smaller portions if you're generating leftovers and never eating them. About storing food properly, you might have heard of, like, sometimes I think you don't. This is not my intuitive thing, but I think storing maybe potatoes and onions or potatoes and something together are not good combinations. So about storing your food properly, storing certain things where the fridge is coolest, inventorying what you have. So taking a look at what you have already and planning your meals, finding recipes to come up with the ingredients you already have. And freezing, we talk about freezing a lot, a little bit connected to the leftovers, but if you have more fresh food than you can eat, you can freeze it. So there are all different guidelines from the USDA about doing that properly. But those are some of the tips that we offer to residents to try to cut down on food waste, because it is a little silly if you think that around 20% of what goes in the landfill is food waste, and then food prices are high. There are people who don't have enough food. Obviously, all of this isn't edible. Like, no one's suggesting people go out and eat their banana peels, but there's plenty of edible food that is going in the landfill that could be eaten if we all plan better, thought about it more. I actually, as part of this process, I haven't been great about this. Like if there was a carton of strawberries that got moldy, I would just go put it in my backyard compost bin, no biggie. But I've actually been paying more attention to what's in my fridge, how long it's been in there. I know there's a container of soup and I keep bugging the kids, how about we eat this before it goes bad? So sometimes it's just about, being more aware and paying more attention. I know that some communities make these stickers, eat first. So that way you make like a container in your fridge where you have those things that are starting to get older and you put them in there with an eat first sticker. So you make sure to eat those and don't let them go bad.
My goodness, they must have a bigger refrigerator than I do. And I have a big refrigerator. Go ahead.
My daughter writes the date on it. Like when she opens something that, like waffles, you're not gonna eat the whole thing. She puts opened on and writes it in marker on a plastic bag.
Yeah, I do that with stuff in the freezer, so I know when it went in.
And what it is.
Yeah, and what it is sometimes, yeah. Is it chicken breast or is it chicken tenders? You can't tell when it's frozen, More than once I've defrosted something and found out it was something I wasn't planning on using that day. But.
Agree. I can mention one other thing. I have 3 dogs, so we have and 4 kids. We have a very busy household. So I often will offer the tip, like with my moldy strawberries that I no longer get moldy, I now have a blender. And so when the strawberries or the blueberries are starting to get bad, I will throw them in the blender with some yogurt and some other ingredients and make frozen treats for the dogs. So that way I'm never wasting the food. I'm trying really hard not to waste food now.
Good. All right. Well, do you have the material that you've sent out about that? Would you be willing to share that with us?
Yes.
Was that proprietary from somewhere or no? Okay.
No.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to take away from, I value people's creativity and, when something's proprietary, I want to be sure that they get the credit and whatever value is added for that.
No, I mean, we're a government organization, so everything we do is public, so we're happy to share. Honestly, over the years, I found that I've learned so much from other communities. When we implemented our first food waste drop-off program in New Bedford, I had spoken with a ton of other communities to get their ideas and see their outreach materials, and so I modeled it on what other communities were doing. So we're happy to share our any information we have with other communities.
Wonderful.
When we were thinking of the idea of a swap shop, I went to every swap shop around us and I got a copy of their literature, their signage, how they do it and all that. Because it's like no sense in reinventing the wheel, It's like other people have done it, and especially the ones that are successful, those are the ones you want to model, obviously.
Completely
Yeah,
agree.
we all get better by sharing, every time, like when I ran across your website, I said, oh, this looks interesting. I want to know more about what they're doing down there. And I appreciate you taking the time not only to speak with us, but to put together your PowerPoint presentation. It was very well done and very informative for us, I think, where we've had some success, not the level of success you've had, but obviously Pay As You Throw would be a great contributor to improving the program that we currently have. But yeah, my husband did the trash this weekend because I was in bed all weekend, but he said there were 3 of them lined up at our food waste bin, which is wonderful because for a while people said, well, where is it? Even though it's right next to all the lawn waste and there's a big sign and a corral, they still somehow couldn't figure out where it was. So, but we've been talking about getting some kind of identification shirts or pennies so that we can spend some time at the transfer station, because when we stand there in our regular clothes, they look at us like we're some kind of weird people, like, who are you to tell me what to do with my recyclables or trash? So we're slowly but surely getting to a point where we can have more of a presence at the transfer station. I'm not happy that we're heading into winter, to do it. I'd rather do it when the weather's a little more cooperative, but, you know, there will be mild days that perhaps we can take advantage of in getting out there face to face and offering some education to people. All right, Marissa, anything else for us? We've asked you for a few things to share. You said you would share your PowerPoint presentation, some of the other, the stickers, as well as what you handed out for reducing food waste. So would appreciate any and all of that when you can get it to us.
Great. I can send it to Jean and Todd. Does that sound good?
Just send it to me and
Just send it?
I'll,
Okay.
yeah, if Todd wants it, that's fine too. You
Well,
can,
he could share it with other places.
That's
too,
right.
so,
yeah,
You know, he shares everything with me, so just send it to him.
okay, yeah,
You keep it
yeah,
easy.
that's fine. All right,
Well,
Marissa-
thank you so much.
yeah, thank you,
Yes,
Marissa.
thank you.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet all of you and to see you, Jean and Todd.
Thank
Okay,
you, Marissa.
Good
to
luck.
see you.
bye,
Okay, take care.
okay. All right. Good, I think that was worth our time. What do you-
Yeah, absolutely.
do you guys think? Okay, we don't have any minutes, for the October meeting. So we'll defer that. Hi, Everett, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Okay, glad you could join us to hear some of that presentation. She's very informative. Okay, we do not have anyone here from the Superintendent of Streets, Trees and Parks office to talk about the signage at the recycling center. Don't really have a whole lot on the promotion of transfer station or signage, our outreach assistance. As I mentioned earlier, I did have, just sends me emails with suggestions for each week as to what to post on our Kingston Recycles Facebook page. She usually has a short deadline, so I'm not sending them out for group discussion. So I'm
That's
hoping
fine.
you're okay with my
Yeah.
using my judgment. She just sent me a whole bunch for December, and I felt that they were kind of out of order. So I re-messaged a lot of it, put it in the order I thought it would make more sense, combine things that I thought would make more sense, like, you know, after Christmas, what do you do with all the cardboard versus paperboard versus all the wrapping and all that, to have that come after Christmas as opposed to before Christmas.
Could we do before and after? It's like a
Probably,
reminder.
probably.
Because when people are loading up for a dump run or whatever,
Right,
you want them to
think
put the
about it.
stuff in the right thing, because once they get there, they're not gonna sort
Right.
it out.
Exactly. And then light strings, I said that should come right around Thanksgiving, because that's when people start to put their trees up and realize last year's lights no longer work. She had that much later in December, so there were quite a few things we moved around. I added. I haven't heard back from her, so hopefully that'll go through. I did get her last invoice, and it was much higher than I had anticipated. I did connect with her and tell her, you
Was
know
it
what,
related to the extra time of setting
we
it
do have
up?
the October 8 minutes. Never mind. And I did tell her that we had engaged her based on the contract that we had with her and the proposed amounts. And I told her we really needed to stick to that budget as close as we could. So I have I just signed off on another monthly billing for $118.75. Okay, the first one. Is that the last one? It was 10-1. Oh, I got another one from her. Yeah, that was the first one, was 118. The second one came in like, what? Oh, Lord. It was higher than I had anticipated. So I did engage with her over email, telling her that we needed to stick as close to the contract as possible because that's what we had budgeted. That I didn't feel comfortable going too far above what we had budgeted for that. This one came in at 135. Okay, so I have submitted that one. So far with the two, we're at about 250. We knew the first one was going to be a little higher, but I was taken aback by the second one. Yeah. I'm sorry, I am not well today. That was Black Earth. I know I have another one.
Didn't she have some justification from what it was?
Yeah, she did. I can't find this. Please give me a second here.
What I read from you is, I mean, if she did, and didn't she suggest that it wouldn't necessarily be that way? That it was
Right.
sometime-
Yes, she did. You okay? There's that one. This is good. We'll get to that in a minute. This is Dartmouth. Forgive me, I do not know what I've done with the material that I had from her. Okay, here, okay. This is what we did yesterday. Okay, so the second one came in at 156.25. Okay, where we were expecting 100. She does give the time amounts because she is paid $25 an hour. So there was crafting and scheduling, crafting more posts, checking on the page, sharing different things. So it came to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.25 hours. So that's how she came up with the 156.25. So just wanted to let you know that I haven't paid that one yet. Her response to me was, first month would be a lot, but no more than 250. I beef up the first month rate to allow getting it up, and I understand that. First invoice was for 6 weeks and it was 118. So the second invoice still included work for setup, as I was trying to find other Facebook groups to share our material in. Also reached out to official Kingston Facebook pages to ask them to share our stuff. I won't need to do that again. I was checking this set a lot too and just trying to evaluate how well it's taking off. The month of November will be lower because I already wrote everything that will be posted, so I just need to schedule it. And I think for the most part, there will be ebbs and flows and we'll average out to what is in the contract. For instance, I have the Mass Recycle Conference in March and work full-time for Mass Recycle leading up to the conference. So I get everything done for March and February and won't do any work for social media in March. Okay. So I felt that that was an adequate explanation. If you feel differently, let me know. I'll engage with her again. You know, it was my understanding that she was creating content for several different towns. So I would think, you know, that it would take that time that she spends on that would be divided up among the towns
Yes.
she's working for. So we did go over the things that she was planning for December. I did respond to her. If you want to see what she was proposing in my response, I have that too. I don't think I sent that out to you. Okay, so anything else on our PR? She seems to think it's going slow. I, on the other hand, I don't know how to gauge what rate we should be increasing. Every day I get pop-ups telling me that there's been more people viewing our web page or our Facebook page. Obviously, we don't have any idea how many people contact our web page here at the town. I had asked about that before, and apparently they don't have that broken down. As soon as I see it pop up, I share it with everyone on my Facebook page. Do you guys, either of you on Facebook?
Fine.
Okay. Are you getting the Kingston Recycles? Have you signed up? Okay. That would be helpful.
I get it.
Okay.
I think
And sometimes I make a comment.
My daughter gets tired of phone calls.
I can come help you. And hopefully we can get Vanessa to share too if she's on Facebook. But once you're hooked up with the Kingston Recycles Facebook page, it should pop up in your feed, and then there's a share button there too. There's also a booster. I have to ask her about that because you have to pay. Todd, is that legit to have a booster on your Facebook page that you have to pay to boost it?
Yeah,
Who does that money go to?
Facebook. It's for targeted ads to boost the viewership. So you can actually target specific groups, areas, interests, all kinds of stuff. It's a really wide. It starts out with a wide net. Basically, it's 60 billion people you can target, and then you narrow it down to just Kingston or male, female. What race are you trying to hit? I mean, it's you can go into very detailed targeting.
Okay, yeah, it's obviously not an area I'm familiar with. I'll have
Yeah.
to engage with her and see what her intent is there.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was going to be on there.
Yeah, I used to use those when I was doing the ghost hunting stuff to target very specific people to try and get more clients that way, and it worked. It definitely works.
Okay. I get the sense though that there's a lot of people who are not on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to get that. It's this Facebook has turned into like the mid 40s, upper 50s, 60s now use that, and the younger crowd uses other stuff. So
Right, but none of them are informational. They're more, I don't know,
that's because nobody
centric to their life, what they're
Oh,
doing.
oh yeah, that's the younger generation. I've got one at home. He's totally egocentric on stuff. He's very
It's like,
focused on what he likes.
yeah, I'm looking for a forum where we can disseminate information.
I mean, Facebook's
it
still one
looks
of the
like-
best ones to do that.
Facebook,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
think,
you got next door neighbor. You can get information out that way, but I don't know how. It's kind of, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it, but
yeah, no, I've tried it and I get messages from all over Massachusetts. I don't really want messages from all over Massachusetts.
well, you can narrow that field down within
I-
your
I
parameters. So,
guess
like,
I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
learn
I've
more
got just
about it.
my neighborhood. So I get stuff just from my neighborhood here in Centerville, let alone all of Centerville. I just get Centerville
Your
Heights
neighborhood.
is really what I get. So
Gene?
Well, I noticed that Instagram and Facebook are kind of merging because there's more content sharing.
it's the same company. Same
Yeah.
company. Yeah.
So it's Facebook is changing.
In a good way or bad
They're
way?
always evolving.
Yeah.
They're always evolving into whatever
Well,
Instagram is
it's-
really just post a picture and a limited amount of text, and then you can kind of just look at pictures, where Facebook you can do unlimited stuff. I mean, you could write a whole book on there if you wanted to. You could do polls, you can do all kinds of stuff. So
Well, for me, I wouldn't share it with the general audience because I have friends all over the planet. And I would just like go to one of the Kingston pages and then post it there. And that, you know what I mean? Because it
Yeah.
let people know that this group exists and they can
Yeah.
become a member of it.
No, you're not gonna. You're there's a limited number of people that are in the local pages. I mean, I've managed to subscribe to most of them in my district just because a lot of people post stuff about solid waste and recycling in there, so I kind of keep track of those things, just so I can get a pulse on what's going on. Really interesting posts on there too in some locations, but
Yeah,
I'm a member of local posts here, local pages here on the Cape, and I've got some private ones that I've got friends involved in for different groups that I'm part of, and
yeah,
yeah, but I mean, it's yeah, you want to target those, but you also want to target everyone in Kingston. You don't want to leave anyone out because you're
right,
Kingston centric.
right.
So
Todd, what time did you say you had to?
I'm probably gonna leave right now so I can get
Okay,
ready. I've got to be on there in just a couple of minutes. So I would
okay.
like to grab a
All
coffee.
right, thank you for joining us this morning. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
sorry about the
Quick
short
question.
short meeting, but
The grants, any word on that?
nothing yet.
No?
So
Okay,
which I knew. They're not telling me anything.
no,
So
it's okay.
Yeah, that
They're
includes,
thinking the mess.
that includes RDP, right? They haven't released
Oh, yeah.
RDP.
they haven't released it yet. So
Interesting.
we're still on hold.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Todd.
Yep.
We'll
Take
see you
care, everyone.
soon.
Yep.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, let's go back to the minutes. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had done the minutes for the last meeting. Have you both had a chance to look at them?
I looked at them, but again, I went looking for the stuff this morning and I couldn't find it.
Okay. Jean, are you
Is
comfortable?
this for September 10th? Is that?
This would be for October 8th.
You know what?
If you
I
haven't seen
searched-
them, I will send them out.
I searched from Vanessa. I didn't look from.
No,
you,
I
so-
did them.
Okay.
I did
sorry.
them in October. She wasn't here. So we'll defer them to next month, okay? Because I want to be sure everybody's had a chance to read them. Okay. So that's where we are in the outreach assistance. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay. Update on organics. I'm going to skip over a few things here. Update on organics collection. As I misstated a few minutes ago, the bill for Black Earth came in at 135. If you recall, they had missed a pickup and there was quite a mess there. The bins were overflowing. And so he did give us a discount on the rate. It should have been 180. So he knocked off one pickup. They did come the following Monday or Tuesday and took care of that. But by that point, the bin lid especially was pretty icky. So I contacted Black Earth to see if they could come when they came, if they could clean it, and they needed access to water. So I had to talk with Paul. Paul said the water has been shut off for the year. That's available there at the transfer station, but he was having his staff go over and take care of it. I asked my husband when he did the run this weekend if it appeared they were clean. If you know Art, he didn't notice anything. So I have yet to go over myself and see if they're clean.
I'm going in today, so I'll look, and I'm gonna actually, I'll take a rake with me because, the bins, it was untied.
Was it?
Yeah, a lot, and whether it was the last time, I'm usually there at least once a week,
Well, I usually am, but
and I will be going sometime this morning. I think.
We had talked about getting a third bin.
We will, unfortunately, Michael,
he promised me last week it would be either last week or next or this week.
well, this, he further complicated by, there's a man who he knows well, it was in the tree work business in Mills. He doesn't just throw it all away.
Mhm.
And so he's got stock there. Michael was gonna buy some of the stock. And Gene and I talked about this briefly, is that Michael suggested we fabricate the thing at his house.
Okay,
And because we're just gonna set it on the ground, we'll put spikes in to secure the legs.
okay. Do you have a way to transport it?
Yes.
Okay.
And I talk to him at least twice a week about this. And I said, what's, please, what's going on?
Mhm.
And he said, the tree fellow, and I can never remember his name. He's a great guy.
Mhm.
He does good work. And he said, he's just really terrible about returning phone calls. He said, he's still got an old flip phone. He said, I don't think he looks at it very often. And he's not in, doesn't have a computer, he doesn't, so, and he's not far up, he's nearby. We're getting, is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
And, when we finally get it done, then, and I'll communicate with both of you, and
Mhm.
is to the actual size. So that we can start talking about signage, what we want on the sign. As I indicated earlier, I think it should be the full width.
A pretty large sign.
Yeah, and, it's gonna be, I'm gonna provide about this height, and
Okay,
it'll be the full width. Now, we don't have to use the full width because it'll be supported. And then maybe something on the side that is more instructional,
okay.
and when we finally get it done, I think it's gonna have some effect, but the reason, and I think I mentioned this, is putting that big sign so people can see it when they're
At the other
using the
bins.
recycling bin. They can bang, there it is.
Okay,
I was thinking it should be like orange, black letters, because it's something that's gonna,
It needs to stand out,
Yeah.
no question about it.
okay. If it's gonna be that big too, it also needs to have air vents, because something that big with,
Yes,
sitting out in an open area,
It's
it's
gonna
not,
get damaged.
well, it could blow over or
It
get
won't,
damaged.
it won't blow
Okay, but it could get damaged.
Yes.
With wind,
Right.
so.
over. It'll be supported well.
I'm
it's-
not doubting that,
Yeah,
David.
but
I'm
the
just
sign
saying,
itself has to have some strength.
yeah, yeah. And I'm not sure where we are gonna go get it, because I have to say, I know you spent a lot of time getting the signs for the swap shop. But they faded
They
so
fade.
quickly.
That's part of the problem, because I think the method by which they make these signs is not durable.
Right,
I mean, the best thing to do is to actually have it painted,
probably.
but that's expensive
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
so we can look into that.
I mean, they should have both indoor and outdoor signs. I mean,
Well, maybe they do, I don't know.
Yeah.
what if we just took a 4x4 piece of plywood, like exterior or
Right.
marine plywood,
Mhm.
and then you can screw it to it, so you know it's not gonna fall.
Oh,
off.
well, it's gonna
We
be,
can hand paint it.
right, it's going to be attached, it's not gonna.
right, right.
It'll be firmly attached. I mean, you're saying vents, and it may, depending on its heft, it may not need vents.
Okay,
I mean, there's no fear of it getting knocked over. There won't be. I mean,
Okay.
we'll build it in such a way that
Okay.
it ain't gonna happen. But we'll look into material, exterior, sheet materials, like plywood and maybe some sort of a synthetic, even not necessarily masonite, but something that's gonna stand up to the weather.
Mm.
But it will have to be painted. And, there are paints out there that will stand up for a while. I mean,
well, marine paint really
marine
works.
paint. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't really have to go specifically marine paint.
I have marine paint on all my windows
Do you?
inside,
Oh, no
so in
kidding.
case it rains. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I use marine paint on all of them.
Wow, that's expensive.
It's worth it. I haven't had to replace or repaint any of my interior windowsills, so. And it looks nice, white glossy,
Yeah.
looks pretty nice, so. All right, so things are still underway with that.
Yeah, and I expect that hopefully we'll get it done in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, now on bin, what I have observed personally and what my husband said he observed the other day is when the bins open from front to back, it's very difficult for some of us to reach that lid to bring it back down. What if we turn the bin sideways so that when you open it, you can close it easily? You're
That's
not
what-
having to reach.
Well, that's a possibility. It changes the dimensions to some degree.
That's why I'm
Yeah,
mentioning it now, because if we turn the bin sideways so that all of us
Yeah.
with shorter arms can open and close it
That's a
without.
good, it's a good point. You know,
You could put a rope on it too. right?
But then it would
Yeah,
get
but-
yucky.
it will, and you have to be able to reach the rope. I mean, it's the same,
Right,
almost
right.
the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I have thought about that too, because
It will get yucky.
it'll get nasty and, yeah. So I'm thinking if we could just, when the bin is turned sideways, it's so easy to pull it up and close it again. So,
Mhm.
That's not a bad idea at all. So let
Okay.
me remeasure when I go. up to
okay, it's
I'll
probably
take my-
gonna add another few inches on each bin.
Not much.
Not much, but
It's
some.
gonna be big enough, 3 bins.
I'm
We're
gonna make
we're
it
gonna,
four.
yeah, we're
Oh,
being
good.
very optimistic.
Good,
We
good.
want it to be big enough
Well,
to
you know, I
accommodate
mean,
more.
some weeks it's, you know, it's impressive. the
It
amount of
is.
Stuff that's in there.
Well, like I said, he was one of 3 people in line, which
will-
Yeah,
is,
that, I've not seen, I've run,
Yeah.
I talk to people when they're there
Yeah.
generally, you know, not that I spend a lot of time, here, but you know, when
Still,
someone else is
yeah.
doing it.
yeah,
And the other thing that's interesting, there are most of us are older.
mhm.
You know, I don't know how we get younger people to, I mean, I could go on and on about this, because every time I go to the grocery store, I was at Market Basket last week, Hanover. And I got my bags, you know. And I'm looking at these young people with just mega food.
Yeah.
Plastic bags.
Yeah.
Hanover doesn't have a bag ban,
Right.
you know?
At least we have that. What I'm seeing now locally is if people don't bring in a bag, they just put the items back in their cart, and then when they get to the car, they just put them in the car. I
Yeah.
saw that last night.
You see
Um,
that at all these?
Hmm?
All these?
At all
Yeah.
these, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They-
but this is Stop and Shop here in Kingston where people just run the stuff down the line and then put it back in their cart and without a bag of any sort.
I
So
haven't seen, well, I don't spend a lot of time in Stop and Shop, but anyway.
I also
Okay.
saw a guy get very frustrated and leave refrigerated items just sitting on a shelf, which I quickly grabbed and threw into a nearby cooler. And I mentioned to the guy in front of me, I said, you and I had just paid for that. And he didn't even acknowledge what I said. And I'm like, yeah, every time somebody puts something where it doesn't
Doesn't
belong, it's a loss for the store and you and I pay
Oh,
for
yeah,
that
of course.
loss. You know, I don't think people recognize,
Well, even when people knock something, you know, like produce or fruit, I could, you know, I'll look and I'll go.
it's on the floor. Yeah,
Pick it up, put it back.
yeah, I do too. Any store. I mean, you go into Marshall's, there's clothing
Oh.
laying all over the floor.
Mm.
I pick it up, I put it back on a hanger because it's going to get damaged, it's going to get filthy, and guess what? Store will take it as a loss and we're going to end up paying for it. It's just, I don't think people understand the cycle of money. You know, even when she said they're getting funding from private haulers. Well, private haulers have no money. They get their money from their customers. So everything comes out of our pocket based on what we earn. And I don't think people understand that monetary cycle of where, you know, well, the company will pay for it. Company has no money.
I mean, it's,
I have one question before I forget. The cots, I'm not familiar with how they pick them up. I'm sure they don't manhandle them. So if they have some kind of a fork thing, and if we turn them sideways, maybe they may not be able to.
oh, that's
Pick 'em up.
a good point, because they have to roll them up. And
That's true.
it's an excellent point. I didn't even start to, but I'm sure I would have, when I started doing it, oh, this doesn't work. That's true.
So if we leave one turned and then they can roll the others out.
Well, I could do that, yes, certainly.
You know,
They
have
take- they-
one
they take
front
the-
to back.
They take the one out and then they.
Then they can do
turn
the
it.
others?
Yeah.
Rather than all of them.
Hmm.
So what do you think?
I don't know, we could get, you know, we could get an electric hookup and have it all slide around. And push the button, dump some.
Thank you,
So
David.
to go back to
Yeah,
the
we
lid cover thing,
Mhm.
and like, I know if you use rope, it's gonna get gross, but I use cable for my dog run. And it's steel and it's coated with plastic.
Mhm.
So if you clipped it to the top of the lid,
Mhm.
it would droop down and then.
It's gonna droop down into the material.
No. It'll be like
in
on
theory-
the side
In theory, it shouldn't, but.
and then
Oh,
when
it'll be
you put
next,
it to
it'll
the
be
front
next,
of the
next to the
bucket.
bin.
If you put it front of the bucket, it's gonna be like right there.
Yeah, but
and
how do
it's
you, how
gonna
do
go
you,
like that.
how do you get, so, all right, here's the lid sitting closed.
Mhm.
You push the lid up. Now, where is the attachment?
So
So
the
it's dangling.
attachment's on the top of the lid here.
Yeah, so it's
And then it-
dangling.
Nope, it would go from the top of the lid and then down to the front.
How
right
long would it be?
corner. Well, however long it needs to be to open the
But
lid,
won't that interfere with people putting stuff in?
No.
And you
because
don't,
it would be off to the side. I can do an example for
Okay.
you, just to show.
because it
So
would
it wouldn't
connect
be
in
in
the
the, it
middle.
would not be in the center of the lid.
No,
Okay, but see, then we would have to check with Black Earth and make sure we would be allowed to modify their bins. These are their bins, not
Mhm.
ours. So we would have to check.
we
with
could
them.
make it like a clip-on thing,
Mhm.
like you have a bolt and you screw it in.
But you
Mhm.
still
And it
have
would
these-
tighten to the top. So then is all you do is grab the wire and pull it
Okay.
shut.
But again, we'd have to get permission to modify their bins.
I'll make one just as a demonstration. to show.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay. All right, so we did the flyers with everybody that got a dump sticker this year. And we're gonna talk about the pennies next. So that could add to what we do is to each of us do what we can to spend a little time up there educating. And what do you think about what she was saying, that they put the kits together? That would take a good amount of our RDP money. I believe it would be appropriate to use RDP money to do that, since we were able to fund the buckets and we were able to fund the weekly pickup. But what do you think about putting together a kit to hand out? We did not do that for the first group. Certainly they could now get one if they wanted to. But it would take some manual work, particularly if we include the bags, starter bags.
Yeah, how would they best be distributed?
Well, again, it looked like they had some of those kits when they were present at the transfer station and could hand them out to people,
Right.
just like we did with the first bins. They could also be available at the highway barn. We'd have to talk to Sean and make sure that he's okay with us having a few of them in their office.
When we get the swap shop, we could put like a little
We-
lockbox.
Or we
area.
could just have a few in there.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly we could do that. What do you think about that concept of putting together a whole kit? What did she say the total of it was like 47 or 40
40, about 40, a little over $40, I think.
Yeah.
40.
for the whole kit? Which is a fairly significant commitment of our RDP funds.
It is, and I just wonder, so the larger container was, what did she say? How big did she say it was 2.5 gallons?
Yes,
2.5 gallons.
That was the bucket.
2.5 gallon was the kitchen bin
Oh,
bag.
that was the kitchen bin bag.
Bag.
That's right, the bag.
Yeah, so the kitchen bin must be at least 2.5 gallons. I don't know right offhand how big that
Well,
is.
think of a 5-gallon bucket and cut it in half.
Cut in half,
You know,
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, that's fairly large on your,
it is.
on your counter.
That's,
but for a
Okay.
family of 4, I guess that would, because there's just two of us and we fill up 2 or 3 bags each week, but they're not 2.5, they're 1.6.
I'm still putting out, I don't know what the volume is in terms of how big the thing needs to be, but we're still disposing of about 30 pounds a month.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped weighing because I don't need to anymore. Just, I did it.
You know what it is,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I use the bucket that I have one of those,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't like, but I use it because it still has air passage through it. And I just happen to have a stainless steel container about this big that I had previously that I use in the kitchen. Because the other one is just, it's too big,
Oh, yeah.
you know? And so I just wonder how, with the one that's 2.5 gallons, it's a pretty good size. And people aren't gonna, I don't think they'll have that in their clothes. So she goes to the kitchen bin. I don't know how big that is, but kitchen bin sure clothes, and that was $5.45. And
Well, she had a picture of it. And it's the
She
same
did.
ones that we,
Had before.
Oh, it is.
yeah, it's
Okay.
kind of odd shape like that, and it has a handle, and the top is kind of perforated. To
Really?
that, they take a wet paper towel and put it on the top,
Okay,
because you get fruit flies.
Yeah, you
Oh,
do.
God, do you ever?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she did say that they use the state buy list, so we could do some research on
Yeah,
there
yeah.
and see what is available. And then compare that to what we could get at, say, like Lowe's or Home Depot. I'm not real thrilled with Home Depot these days, so maybe Lowe's, to see what we can get there. Uline is what we used before. I'm not real thrilled with them right now, so
What's your issue with Home Depot?
we can talk offline about that.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't like either one of them because, I have this thing about, it's just things have become so cheap. And I don't mean inexpensive. I mean
They're
cheap.
cheaply made.
And we're paying, what's becoming a little bit of a premium, at first it was, oh, wait, you save money. You don't save money at Lowe's anymore, really.
No.
You can, I suppose, but,
And once
Home
again,
Depot,
we're purchasing plastic,
Oh,
which really,
I look at, Patricia was going on about plastic and I said, look at all the stuff that you buy.
all you have to do is take a quick inventory of things you can see from wherever you're standing or sitting, and there's so much
Yeah.
plastic.
And how to overcome it. I mean, mayonnaise. I knew I bought plastic when I bought it, but it was in the pantry and I went to get another jar of mayonnaise and it's plastic. I'm like, damn,
I
Yeah.
look for anything in a glass jar.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
do I.
Or I won't buy it.
I just threw out all my, for leftovers. She's talking about leftovers. I usually cook for 2 or 3 meals, so I don't have to. So we have leftovers, and I was using plastic bins. I got rid of all of them and bought glass bins. Now they're heavier. They're definitely heavier. They're more prone to breakage and all of that. But I switched us over almost completely from plastic storage to,
Yeah, I'm getting there too.
yeah, I just,
I'm horrified when someone takes something and puts it in the microwave in plastic.
oh, I know.
If it comes in plastic, I put it in glass and
Yeah.
then microwave it.
Yeah.
But usually I won't buy it.
Well, I have to say I'm guilty. I would buy the roaster pre-roasted chickens. They come in a black plastic base with a clear plastic top. And I would just stuff the whole thing in the microwave. And now I think about what I was doing and how horrible that was. So obviously that won't happen again, but it's that education factor that we just have to keep pushing. And I'm hoping, what we should probably do as a committee is to come up with some main themes we'd like to see our PR person do after we get through the holidays. I think right now the focus does have to be on the material that comes about with the holidays, but maybe focus on a message for January, a message for February, message for March, really hone in on one particular issue. We talked about the black plastic as being a possibility for some messaging. But I think too, how do we reduce the plastic in our life? You know, what do we replace it with? Where is it available?
You can, well, you know, just talking about at home, you can, you know, you can make a difference at home, but it's hard to not buy something that's wrapped in plastic.
I know.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna go away. I mean, as long
No,
as.
it's not. It's
Yeah.
much cheaper
Well,
to
it is, of course
produce
it
and
is.
to ship. Glass is
Yeah.
heavy
It's heavy.
and it's subject to breakage,
Mhm.
more than plastic. So as a manufacturer, you're gonna be looking for the cheapest material
Absolutely.
and cheapest shipping, uh, cheapest packaging all around. You know, you're gonna try and minimize your costs. And I don't know how we, as a society, get around that bottom line of, well, how do I do this the cheapest without eliminating plastic?
Well, we
From
all,
the
Well, I know
picture.
Claire was working on that at one
Mhm.
time.
She is, there were several bills she worked on extensively for the state legislature this year, and none of them got passed.
They always
They
let
got
them
into,
die in
yeah,
committee.
yeah, yeah.
I don't, I just, it's amazing to me that, you know, we're in theory, you know, one of the better educated states in the country.
Yep,
And we are so far behind.
Yep.
On things that we should do.
because
that should have
the
begun to
wherewithal is not there in our legislators.
No, it's not.
And here was a cycle where we could have made a difference by choosing candidates that were more aware of the effects of all of this on our lifestyles. And that process needs to start early. So there will be legislators coming up for reelection in 2 years. So that process has to start now, identifying candidates who are pro-environment, and have the wherewithal to not only come up with legislation, but to support it and
Yes.
get it passed.
Kathy's really,
Yes, and
is.
believe me, she hears from me quite frequently.
But then you get, you know, who's Speaker of the House now, whatever we call him.
I don't know.
I mean, some of it gets there and it's just, you know,
They have
power.
they have the power to kill it. Yeah.
And they do very effectively.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
just going, okay.
Yeah.
leave it there.
Well, I can tell you for every legislator, there's probably half a dozen lobbyists for every legislator, across the board. And those lobbyists are the ones that help fund campaigns. So,
Well,
you
that's-
know, it all comes down to the almighty dollar. It's everything we're talking about here today it all comes down to the monetary value versus the intrinsic value versus the environmental value.
And you know, and it was so clearly pronounced in our recent national election.
Yeah. Environment's taking a backseat.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
at the same time as the storms are getting more and more
Right.
extreme.
Yeah.
And insurance companies are throwing a fit because
Well, when people can't get insured for their property, hopefully that will wake some people up, because you hear all these people interviewed right after a huge hurricane or devastation of some sort. Oh, we'll rebuild. So they're going to rebuild right where they know there's a high probability of another disaster coming through. And I know you can't always anticipate where those things are happening. Who would have thought Asheville, North Carolina would be devastated with flooding? But if you're on a coastal area and your house repeatedly gets damaged or washed away, insurance companies are not going to
No, they're not. I mean,
cover
well,
you, or it's going to be such an astronomical premium.
Well, it's been slow here too. I mean, but
Yeah.
a lot of coastal properties now, you know, on the South Shore particularly.
Oh, they're
up in
$1
Plum
million
Island.
properties.
Right, but the insurance companies are starting to walk and the government's not subsidizing any of that.
they tried to do that. They did they flew planes over the coast
Mhm.
and they did LiDAR for to tell where the water would go if it rises.
Mhm.
And in Boston, they actually painted out because they have the ocean coming from one side and the Charles River Basin
From the
coming
other.
from the other side. And MIT and all that area there, they're not gonna fare well. So
Well, look at
they've
the
been,
waterfront now. All you have is a high tide and the whole area is flooded. People are walking around in boots because there's 4 or 5 inches of water.
When I see what they've done to the waterfront, because I spent a lot of time down in that area because I was in the trucking business and I had a terminal in South Boston. And I used to look at that property, when the railway yards closed and then, a lot of it was abandoned property. And so it was picked up inexpensively years and years ago in parking lots but I'm watching them build in an area that is basically sea level and filled.
Yeah. Well, all of
And
Boston is
you-
on a fill.
I know that, the Back Bay is why it's called Back Bay.
Yeah.
And, I looked at that over the years and watched and I'm going, what are these people thinking? And I mean, millions.
They're
and
in
millions
denial.
and millions of dollars.
They're in denial. We know right here in Kingston that over time, the sea level will rise. The landing will be completely.
Well, the landing gets
Underwater.
flooded on a regular
It
basis.
does now. It's gonna
knee-high,
be
more.
completely underwater. Bradford House is gonna be oceanfront, bayfront, riverfront. We know what they're predicting. But we're kind of getting off topic here,
We are.
but the bottom line is
It's
we're not going to make any progress as far as inundation of plastic and reduction of trash until we have the legislation to enforce it. Some people are willing to do what needs to be done voluntarily. Unfortunately, some people need to be forced to do it, and I think that's the bottom line. They don't want government interference, even though we know it's pretty much to save our humanity.
call it what you will. They don't want to be inconvenienced.
I guess.
They don't. And that has a lot to do with it. I'll just throw it in the trash or, and then it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
Well, it's out of sight.
right.
But-
Well, that's
it's out
where,
of mind. It
that's
ain't
where
out of
we
sight.
need to really renew our efforts to educate the ones who are willing to rethink the way they're doing things. Providing enough information to get people thinking about it. I mean, Paul did a marvelous job redoing the recycling and disposal center. He made it so accommodating for people to recycle as much as possible. I don't understand this delay in updating the signage. I think while not everybody stops and reads signs, it certainly is helpful for people who are trying to figure out where stuff goes. I think a renewed effort on our part. I think the PR part is going to be a help, but also renewed effort on our part to help educate and come up with perhaps different ways of doing that. I don't want to talk about pay as you throw today because it's not on our agenda, but I can guarantee it'll be on the next meeting agenda, which is probably not going to be till January.
Oh, yeah, December, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can meet in December if you feel it necessary, but I think we all could use a break. So January, I intend to put that back on the agenda. That it may be a little late. We may need to meet in December simply to talk about that because, as you know, the warrant,
Get it on the warrant.
but to get that on the warrant starts in January.
Well, then maybe we should have, we don't have to have a long meeting.
Right, but we could just peg it for pay as you throw in our willingness, whether or not we want to move forward on that. I'd really like to have Todd's opinions on how to proceed there because it will involve significant amount of our time meeting with various groups and providing information on pay as you
Yes.
throw. But from what he said, he did in Halifax, which is a tough cookie right now as far as environmental issues. They were able to get it passed through the Board of Health. It was the Board of Health regulation, but they had to hold, you have to hold public hearings on Board of Health regulation proposals. But they spend a lot of time educating groups on the value of pay-as-you-throw. And I think that's what we would be committing ourselves to. So again, it's not on our agenda for today, but in preparation for a discussion, I think we need to think about our timeline and what efforts would be included in that timeline. Okay, so give that some thought. And if you're willing, we can schedule a meeting on the second.
I think it'd be, it was, as you know, because you did the presentation, but it was a total failure when you did. I mean,
It was.
And people, one of the things that bothered me about that is, and there are people who should have known better, but there are a couple of older people who are going, well, what about older people? And I think you're missing the whole point of this. It's not, it's how hard is it? And the other thing is that I think it's been substantially proven that pay-as-you-throw saves money.
It does.
And
It
it
does.
also increases, to some degree, increases recycling.
Well, because people don't want to have to pay,
That's precisely.
and right now, if we can show that they would in effect be saving money they're spoiled with a very low sticker price. It's subsidized by the rest of the town through the town budget. It's not an enterprise fund, so it doesn't have to cover its expenses for the trash. But if we could show that it would come very, very close to what they're paying right now for a sticker, or even less. I mean, that was the point of the last presentation, was that it's not going to cost you any more if you do this right. But we had people who knew, when you have a significant number of members of your household, obviously you're going to be paying more than you're paying now because you're not paying your fair share. And that's the part that really bothered some people, is that they're going to end up paying more.
Plus, there was a fellow that was on the finance committee who had a family of 7, 5 children.
Yeah,
And he went
trying
on
not to
and
be
on.
specific, but
He
yeah.
went on and on and on about it.
Right.
I think to myself, this is totally selfish.
Well,
Totally
it
selfish.
was.
I apologize if this, can we move on?
Yes.
Thank you.
This weekend. We'll have a full discussion at the next meeting, okay? All right. Okay,
Use up some time.
yeah, SSRC, we did have a meeting. David, you had zoomed in.
I
Did you-
did, and I wasn't doing well that day, and
That's fine.
I wasn't paying attention.
That's all right. We had 2 different presentations. The first group is a group that Paul has already utilizing for some of our materials at the transfer station. The second one is they were talking about equipment for transfer stations, and honestly, because that's not my area of expertise, I wasn't fully comprehending everything they were talking about. Basically, trying to get municipalities to go to EV on all of their vehicles, and how the state is willing to subsidize the purchase, but the purchase is still way above what a non-EV item would cost. And then the fact that the batteries are much heavier, so you have to take into account where weight is a factor, and the longevity of the battery, because Paul pointed out that when we get a snowstorm, his trucks need to go 24 hours a day. And they were saying the recharge time was 10 to 12 hours. He said, so I cannot have half my fleet being recharged while during a huge storm event.
Fleet size.
Yeah, you'd have to, which would significantly increase the cost of purchasing and maintaining. And let's face it, I don't think the highway barn is big enough to handle double the fleet. So, so I think it's a matter of waiting for the technology to advance to where it's a financially feasible process. I don't think it's because people don't want to utilize EV, but they have to be practical about what will work and what won't work. If you're talking about a regular 8-hour day, that vehicle could be EV and not be a problem, be plugged in at night. But if you're in an emergency, let's say we had a hurricane and his guys had to be out clearing streets for more than 10 or 12 hours, they would be out of energy on the trucks. So it's a balance. And I think most towns are going to be willing to have some vehicles EV
Well,
where others cannot be.
when
at
the,
this
when
point.
the application is in practice, you can't do it.
Right.
And sort, but yeah, some smaller vehicles can be electric.
Yeah.
Certainly not ones that are going to be, as Paul suggested, they're doing road work.
Right.
And the amount of energy that it takes to push all that stuff out of the way is tremendous.
Right. So so that was the second presentation we had that day. Just to let you know that there was one at the beginning, from, wish I had my notes here, but it was a recycle company that Paul's already using. And the second one was this presentation on EV vehicles for municipalities. So, yes, I wrote up the minutes so I can get those out to you, from South Shore Recycling. So the next meeting of South Shore Recycling should be in January, I believe. I think we skip over December.
And that's being done locally, isn't it?
It's in Duxbury. The next meeting is in Duxbury. Oh, there is, no, it's December 11th. In Duxbury at 9 a.m. at Duxbury Town Hall. Okay. I have not, the agenda usually comes out about a week ahead of time. I try and get that all over to you as soon as I get it. So you can see who's going to be the presenter and what issues are being discussed. The big news at this meeting, as far as SSRC goes, is that Marshfield has decided to rejoin.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they were one of the founding members, but they left in 2009. They've now had some change in personnel. And Claire went and made a presentation to them. And I think they saw the value of being a member, primarily with hazardous household waste. But the fact that she does all of this contracting and bidding, I mean, that's a huge amount of her time, and it saves 18 communities duplicate work to do these bidding things for some of the major services that every community needs or can tap into. So we haven't had as much opportunity to have internal discussions about what issues are being dealt with in the communities. I'm hoping we get back to the point where we can have some of those discussions. It seems the meetings are so packed, and we try and get them done in about an hour and a half, because that's a lot of time. Most of the people who attend are municipal employees. So for them, that's a good amount of time for them to devote. So we really haven't had much in the way of discussion on community issues. As you know, Paul retired. I think there's at least one or two other DPW directors that are probably going to be retiring. So there'll be a change in faces at the South Shore Recycling. What we're seeing are more women in positions, and younger people in positions, particularly in Plymouth. So I think there's going to be, a healthy change in.
It's nice seeing younger people get involved.
It is.
It's so important.
It is. We're struggling here to try and attract younger people to this. And I realize that having our meetings on a Tuesday morning is not conducive, but till we get a candidate who says, yeah, I'd love to be there if you could have it in the evening, then I think we can reconsider that. the benefit of having it during the day is we've got Todd, we had Paul. I'm hoping Sean will be able to join us periodically. He's doing 2 jobs right now, so we have to appreciate the fact that he doesn't have a lot of extra time. Plus, he's new to the position. He's probably trying to, figure out what it is he needs to do on a daily basis. So I will continue to include him on our mailings. So he knows what we're up to and he knows when we're meeting, and hopefully, if either of you know Sean.
I don't really, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay, he went to high school with my son. They played ball together. But his father was Dusty, who used to be the custodian here.
When?
You remember Dusty? Yeah, yeah. Well, Sean's
He's
his
here
son.
forever.
Yeah, Sean's his son. Are you okay?
Just need to stand up.
That's fine. That's fine. I understand.
If
If I could lay down right now, I would. Okay, school. Where are we with school?
We're not anywhere at the moment. We need to do that.
Okay, so no action
So-
on the schools.
No.
Okay,
So I thought of a inroad.
okay,
I have the hats for the schools, for the cafeteria, for beverage containers.
mhm,
And so I have like big piece of plywood, I got them all routed out,
mhm,
and I have a piece of wood that I'm gonna put in the middle so that one group of kids can go one way, one the other, dump it in the middle. So what I was thinking is a hook, talk to the guy from Hingham, I
mhm,
can't believe,
mhm.
and show it to him and ask him for some advice on that, and that
Okay.
would kind of be a hook into.
Okay, when do you plan on doing that?
Well, pretty soon.
Okay,
I had to clean up my garage.
sure.
That thing with my hip, I'm so far behind
know,
with things
I know.
around the house,
I know.
but now I'm in action.
Okay.
So, how
Okay.
about, I'll shoot for by the next meeting.
Okay,
Before the next meeting, I'll reach out to him
okay.
and ask him if he'll come. and
Rick
look at it.
Swanson.
Rick Swanson.
Now, he's the new sports director.
He is new athletic director,
No,
but
he's where?
he's in Silver Lake now.
Silver Lake.
He started he was a Silver Lake graduate. He was a teacher and a coach here at Silver Lake. Then he went to Hingham and really got their recycling program up and running, and environmental consciousness, all of that. And he became principal. And now he's back at Silver Lake as the athletic director.
There's
So-
no-
so-
there's- oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. So we know he's a strong advocate for recycling and environmental. Go ahead, David.
But there's a new, I think, whatever the title would be.
Superintendent.
Assistant superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
I know her.
Do you? Okay. All right, well, I think,
She just started, so I'm gonna actually, they just moved to town
oh, okay.
and I invited them to come over and they know, their family. They know Michael and Katie, his wife,
Mhm.
and my daughter as well. So I invited them to come and, a little kind of welcome to town.
Mm-hmm.
And the date hasn't been set, but I'm gonna wait on proposing anything to her until she gets settled in.
Yeah.
Sure.
And also I wanna do a little fishing and see where her sympathies lie relative to all of this.
Okay,
And that might be an additional, hopefully, it'll be a little additional support.
that'd be great. Okay. Okay, all right, so we'll proceed with that. We do have an article on the town special town meeting warrant on the 19th. It's the last article, it's number 14. It's just amending our town bylaw on recycling to say that all residents, not just the ones that use the transfer station, are required to recycle. We looked at that language a few months ago. We voted on it. So it's now official. It's on the warrant. It's the last one. So,
So obviously the town lawyer had looked at it.
yep,
Okay.
it's all queued
Awesome.
up. It's ready to
Excellent.
go. Yeah, we had that back and forth before the language got finalized and it got sent into the Board of Selectmen. So,
Awesome.
we're all set on that. So if you can, please come. Encourage people
When
you
is
know
it?
to vote in favor of that. It got approved by the Board of Selectmen.
What's the day of this special town meeting?
19th, this next Tuesday night at 7:00.
What time's it start?
7. So that'll be the last article. The first article has to do with the MBTA rezoning. That will probably be a long discussion. There seems to be many pros and cons on that article, a lot of misunderstandings.
Is that for the transfer? The trash?
No, it has nothing to do
Oh,
with
okay.
that. No. This is, the Baker administration decided that all communities with a train terminal needed to ensure that they had appropriate zoning within, I think, half a mile of that train terminal to
For residential.
for
extension?
residential, it's part of the effort to reduce the amount of commuters on the road so that you have your housing close enough that people can walk or bike to the train station. So the Healy administration is continuing to support that. If you're following it in the news, Milton Town Meeting declined to approve it. The state came back and said, you got to do it. And so I believe there's some lawsuits there, but the bottom line is the state can withhold grants for anything if we don't approve the zoning. It's simply an overlay zoning. And the town planner was able to have it. She worked on it apparently extensively and got them to include the already existing 260 some units at the mall. Okay.
What about by Portage Park?
I don't know what the situation is there. I haven't followed Plymouth. I would
Well,
think
you
they
know, the
probably,
huge, where they tore down Walmart. And
Yeah,
put in huge
they
housing.
probably are pretty close to being in compliance because that's a pretty well-developed area already with housing. Much of them, and I'm just going based on the meetings I've sat in on, that much of the property included in the zoning is not really buildable. Just because of where the train station is. I mean, you put your train station away from housing, basically. And now they're saying you have to put your housing right near it. And I understand the whole concept. But I think the total count for Kingston came in over 800 units. So we can deduct the 260, 80, whatever is at the mall. But that still leaves another 500 some units. So you'll see things on Facebook about, oh, we can't have another 550 housing units in Kingston in that particular area. Well, there's no guarantee that they'll ever get built, but it has to be zoned. You've got to have a developer who's willing to come in and build. So this step is just the zoning of that area to make it, I think, by right for a developer to build housing. You'd have to read all of the language, and all the language is on the town website regarding the article. Yeah, I think it's important that people read and understand exactly what it's saying. I'm giving you my interpretation of what I've heard, but I think everyone should read it for themselves and be sure they understand what they're voting for, what they're voting against. because we've got some pretty big infrastructure issues coming up with a new well. And that was going to be funded a lot by grants. So if you're willing to give up all those grants and enter into litigation with the state, then you vote no. I'm not sure that that's the most prudent approach. I understand people's concerns about additional housing. However, being the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, I can tell you there's a dearth of housing in this community. Dearth, meaning a lack of housing for all levels, all levels. Houses go in the market or don't even make it to the market and they're sold already. But in particular, we're lacking in housing for our young adults, for our young families, for our municipal employees, for our restaurant workers, for our shop workers, grocery store workers. I mean, none of them can now afford the average home price in Kingston, which is $620.
I know, but it's complicated because.
It is, it's very
got,
complicated.
The so-called affordable housing percentage of, it just irritates the hell out of me because you look at the number of units that these contractors are required to have, they're minimal and they're not inexpensive. So I don't, I look at it and go, what's affordable about that?
Well, right now, an affordable home in Kingston is below 300,000 for a family
That's
of
what's
four.
called affordable.
It is in this
Mhm.
area because the other homes in that development are going for 6, 7, 800,000. So it's all relative to the real estate market as to what's
Yes.
considered affordable. But we're getting off target again. So I'm just pointing out that our article is the last one. The first one is probably going to consume a good amount of time. I think many of the others are more or less housekeeping. I'm trying to think if there's anything really controversial in there. You can look at it, the warrants on the the town website. And there's the language that'll be in the booklet you get town meeting. So I hope people will, to me, this is just a housekeeping article for us with the, Board of Health having passed the private hauler regulation. They're mandating that everybody recycle. We just haven't updated the bylaw. So this is an update of the bylaw. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Cobbler aprons. We need to get to this. I sent you a picture of what I got from the shop downtown, specialties. I asked her about the vests that we had originally talked about, and all they had were the yellow fluorescent ones that really didn't have any place to put wording of any sort. Vanessa had sent me something very similar that she had found online. I don't know how you guys feel about wearing something like that. That it ties at the side and it would have Kingston recycles probably front and back. And I was figuring probably they don't have it in green. So we can either go with black or navy. You have to order it at least 12 to 24, a minimum of 12, $22 each. So
You wouldn't
They
need
don't
more
have
than.
orange.
hmm,
They don't have orange.
they do not. Red, navy, and black. That's it. I can try and find another outlet that sells this sort of thing. I've worked with specialties on a couple different things recently, and they really came through. They did a good job. So this is just one source. But I'd really like to have a final decision on this before too long. Because as I said, I'd like to spend some time at the transfer station helping educate, but I don't feel comfortable doing it without some identification.
That helps. At least people know you're not blowing in the breeze, so to speak.
Well, some of them look at you kind of funny, like, who
Well,
are
no,
you?
without identification, I'm saying.
Right.
Because I don't say a lot when I'm there, but every once in a while, I just can't contain myself,
Right.
and I'm polite, And I've gotten, kind of looked at, why don't you mind your own freaking
Right,
business?
right.
And then another,
And we may still get that.
well, you may, but at least you're not, your next door neighbors who are telling you what to do.
Right.
You're just there to educate.
Yeah.
I think some people can separate the two.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I still do it. In fact, I'll verbally pick out something out of the trash and move it over to, the paper board or cardboard.
Mhm.
And without addressing the person who did it, if I happen to see who's done it.
Right.
But I don't want to get into an argument. with people.
No, and that does not bode well for us at all to have a confrontation.
No,
It's,
and it's not.
It's counterproductive.
It's
It is.
totally counterproductive.
It is, yeah. So what's your pleasure? Go with this, do some more
What do you
research.
think?
I think that would be fine, something like that for volunteers, like, so we have a rack of them, whoever is volunteering for a swap shop.
Mhm.
But some of the ones I looked at that got shot down, I thought were much better because they had visibility. They kind of looked official. I mean, you see people, anybody working on the road has that.
Right, and they have those. They have those. But if you want to get those for us, and then something like this for volunteers, but keep in mind, we'd have to order at least 12.
I don't think
And-
we would need more than 12. would we?
I
Yeah.
mean, there's not gonna be more than 12.
No,
people
no,
at a
but
time
I'm saying we would
volunteer.
have to order a minimum of 12. And,
Well, you're gonna lose one here, and someone's gonna
Of
walk
course.
off with it or forget it, so
yeah,
it would be good to have some in stock.
yeah. And it does look like there's 3 front pockets, so if you're there handing out material, you could easily have a few stuck in your pocket to hand out.
If the colors are limited to that, I would suggest the red because then the black, perhaps black lettering one would stand out better.
Mhm.
Black doesn't do much for me, but I mean, that would be highly visible, so if you use white lettering.
It would be, yeah. I mean, I'm willing to do some more research, or I'm willing to see if we want to do a compromise. It's just, I think on the vests, those fluorescent vests, I'd have to go back to see what can be printed on those
What-
and how much they would be.
What are the transfer station people wearing?
They have those vests, the fluorescent.
And it does say, but it has.
I don't know if it has anything on it.
I believe it does.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I remember seeing something, but I'm not.
Yeah.
positive.
I mean, they don't consistently wear them. Sometimes
No,
they
they
do,
don't.
and sometimes
No,
they
they
do. But I think it's helpful to the public to be able to say, oh, there's somebody I can ask.
Well, see, if that, what I was getting at with that
Mhm.
question was that if we got something similar to what they have, it wouldn't say that we are a part of them, but we would be perceived to be part of them in a
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm.
So we wouldn't come on as strangers.
Right, right.
That's all.
Yeah, I take it. I understand what you're saying. So price those out. The fluorescent vests, see what could be printed on them. I can do that. I mean, okay. All right. What else we got? Anything anything else? We've had a very long meeting. The discussion of black plastic, I'm gonna push that off to January.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. As Todd said, still no word on the grants either. I mean, we know how much we were awarded with RDP, but they haven't paid it yet. And then, of course, our grant request for the swap shop, haven't heard from that. The one vendor does call me periodically, and I have to keep pushing him off, saying, we still haven't heard. I don't think he believes me at this point. Okay, anything else that is on our agenda that we need to cover today? I think we've we've pretty much exhausted most of this.
Mhm.
I will contact Sean to see about the signage. I just don't understand the delay.
So do you know if Paul initiated it? Like we have,
He promised me that he would have it done before he left. Then he told us at his last meeting, he wasn't sure he was going to be able to get it done, but he had talked to Sean about it. So I think at this point, I need to follow up with Sean, keeping in mind that he's new in the job, he's doing 2 jobs at once. But to me, we're approaching the 2-year mark. When we did our walkthrough with Paul, and I sent him extensive notes on what we had decided we needed as far as posted, as signage, so. I think 2 years is a long time.
It is one.
can you forward that to Sean?
Yeah.
Just so he
Yeah.
has it?
Yep.
and-
All right. Anything else? Next meeting. We're going to devote strictly to pay as you throw, okay? Is that what we
Yep.
agreed to? All right, so our next meeting, scheduled meeting would be the 10th. Everett, I'm sorry, I see you have your hand up.
That's okay. It's just a quick thing. It was on the presentation earlier by Marissa. So the kits for the containers and the bags was $20.17 from that, and the 47 and change that was for the case of the 500 of the compostable bags.
Okay, all right, so the complete kit was the 20 you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
So it got to 40 with the bags?
No, the case of the 500 bags was $47 and change
Oh, okay.
per box. But the kit with the 10 bags, the kitchen container, and the Home Depot or whatever container you use, those, that entire ensemble was $20.17 or so cents.
this was a regional water survey that was in our mailbox, so if you want to take a look at that. And I did have one other thing I wanted to share with you. I also decided to get rid of all my plastic utensils, for cooking. Many of them were black, black plastic. So I went in search of replacements. I found obviously the bamboo, that sort of thing, which over time takes on flavors and again, splinters and that sort of thing. But what I found was this group of items. They were varying shades of pink and purple. I meant to bring one with me today. And on the back, it says it takes about 2.6 pounds of grapes to produce a standard milliliter bottle of wine. And after the grapes are squeezed, about 20% of that weight remains in the form of grape skins, seeds, and stems. This is a 2016 article in the journal Comprehensive Reviews in Food Science and Food Safety. The pomace, which is the grape material, as grape waste is called, is something that the globe wine industry produces a lot of, close to 12 million tons each year. So what do wineries do with all that gooey stuff? You might think that disposing of vast quantities of it would be a sticky problem, but even though the liquid has been squeezed out, the material has left behind has a variety of uses. And that is what my new utensils are made of.
Grape skin.
Grape material, right? Grape material. So I've just started using them.
Where did you find it?
I found this probably it was at Marshall's.
Really?
But as you know, those stores are one-ofs. You find an item there once and you'll never find it again.
Right.
But the name of this company is Eco-Friendly Grapes, or Cook with Color. I can make a photocopy of this if you would like. Unfortunately, guess where it's made?
China.
My question would be, what do they use as a binder?
Exactly. And honestly, I did not go on the website. Let me see. The writing is so tiny. Let me see. Extraction techniques. Okay. So I guess the website is www.cookwcolor.com.
I use ceramic cookware
Okay.
and stainless steel spatula
Uh-huh.
with whisk and all that.
Okay.
So
all right.
that's my 2 cents.
All right. Well, I just found this rather interesting. So that this says 20%, and the handle is 20% great material and 80% recycled PP. What's recycled PP? Then the spatula head is eco-friendly silica. So I'm trying it out. I did not like the fact that it was made in China. But they are certainly well ahead of us in recognizing new ways to manufacture. So we have that. Okay, and as a side note, there was somebody had asked on Facebook about recycling of batteries at the transfer station. So I went to the handout that they get, which I helped craft, and I couldn't find anything regarding batteries. So that's another thing I'm going to talk to Sean about, is when we revamp, the new handout, which keeps getting longer and longer, is more information on batteries, particularly the lithium ion. And I did send you an article I found on an alternate material they're using now to try and create batteries. It was sodium, right?
I don't.
Didn't I send that to you guys?
The newest one is lithium ion batteries, and it requires less rare materials
Mm-hmm.
and they're more recyclable. But there's a ton of stuff. They're coming up with solid state batteries that are basically made of glass.
Okay.
But the PP, it's like a form of plastic, polypropylene.
So it's still got plastic in it. So it's
Yeah.
still 80% plastic.
This stuff doesn't go away.
No.
And plus,
It's a slight
heating it
reduction.
and, you're cooking with it, it's like,
I know.
But I, like you, I mean, most of what I use for cooking is stainless steel.
Okay.
You know.
Well, I wanted to
No,
get
you
rid of
can't
my
see
black
cooking,
plastic,
can't
so I
see
did
those.
do that. So
well,
It's just a hangover from the restaurant too, because we use all stainless. steel.
right, which would make sense.
in the ceramic cookware, I mean, it doesn't chip off like the Teflon. And it's non-stick, so.
Right. So, yeah, and that's.
Did I not print that out? Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
11:22. Wow.